welcome to another episode of You and Me and Multiple Sclerosis. My name is Pam, and I've been living with multiple sclerosis for 38 years. And in a recent video, I talked about the importance of having generally good health, good metabolic health especially, now that we have multiple sclerosis, which is not something we can necessarily cure and get rid of. As long as we're going to live with multiple sclerosis, we want to be as healthy overall as we possibly can be. And one of the areas that I have been focusing on in the last year or so is exercise. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you know that I don't care much for aerobic exercise. It really doesn't make me feel good at all. But that's no excuse not to do some kinds of exercise. Well, fortunately, recently, I've been watching the Can Do MS series, MS Moves with Mandy. She has a lot of really good exercises and different kinds. So if one is really not your cup of tea, there's other ones. And the one that she had recently, I'd like to talk a little bit about, because this one has to do with bone health. She makes the point that those of us with multiple sclerosis tend to be a little less active, or maybe a lot less active, so that we don't do as much weight-bearing exercise as we should. And by exercise, I don't necessarily mean focusing on exercise, but let's face it, we don't walk as much as we did, we don't lift things like we did, we don't stretch like we did, and over time, that can really become a problem for our bone density and our bone strength. She says that the rate of osteoporosis and osteopenia being just a general weakening of the bone, that it is greater in people with multiple sclerosis than in the general population. So given that we have that problem, or that potential problem, it would be a good thing to do some exercise that would strengthen our bones. Her Bone Health series is a two-part series, and I'll focus today just more on the first part, because the first part talks about exercises maybe, I guess you could say, from the waist up, and the part two focuses on exercise from the waist down, so your legs and your glutes mostly. And I will put the links to both videos in the description box below. But I'm going to show you just a few clips from the first part, and maybe a little bit of commentary about how I found these exercises, whether I found them difficult or useful, tiring, etc. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Okay, so now this is the Bone Health series, and she's going to be looking at the upper body for this part.
He emphasizes on strengthening the areas of our body that are most vulnerable to bone decline, such as the hip, the spine, wrists, and arms. This first video will really focus on the arms, wrists, and upper back. The equipment that you need for this exercise routine is a chair, a resistance band, and some weights or weighted objects.
And those are important. You need a resistance band, so if you don't have one, you need to get one.
We'll start with the rowing exercise.
This is the first one, and I found this really useful.
Band. Place it under your feet. Pull those arms towards you, squeezing those shoulder blades together. And repeat that movement, slow and controlled, really feeling the effort through upper back, biceps, arms.
So you really do need to pull on this one so that you feel it. It looks like it's easy. She's making it look easy, but it actually does require some effort.
Pull aparts, palms up, thumbs out, arms in front of you, extend those elbows, pull apart with that resistance band. Here we go.
Again, this looks like it's easy, but I'll tell you, after a while, you start to feel it in your shoulder blades.
Who are less mobile, or people who are more often wheelchair users, to be more susceptible to osteoporosis and osteopenia, or lessened bone density. It's also quite common in folks with MS who have had steroids for relapses. They may also be at an increased risk. So keep that in mind as we're doing these exercises. They may also be preventative. The pull aparts with the resistance band, elbows in nice and tight, palms face inward, thumbs.
And again, I have more trouble with this one. It's hard for me to keep my elbows tucked against my sides.
Shoulder blade muscles and shoulder blades activating. Excellent job.
And now you can use either commercially bought weights, or you can use cans of soup or whatever you have around.
Face outward, bend and extend that elbow. Here we go. Feel free to use a weight that is challenging, particularly challenging in the last 2 to 3 repetitions. You want to feel like there's effort present, but that recovery can happen in a timely way.
I appreciate that she says that recovery does need to happen in a timely way, so don't overdo it.
Exercises. Exercise, tricep kickbacks, lean forward, stabilizing your body, extend that elbow behind you, really keeping that upper arm nice and stationary so that you can isolate that tricep muscle.
This is actually harder than you think, because I kept my upper arm kept moving, and I really tried hard not to let that happen.
It's not uncommon for you to find that you might need to use a slightly lesser weight or perhaps no weight at all. Very nice.
And then we do the same thing on the other side.
Let's begin. Stabilizing that upper arm, bending and extending at the elbow only. Everything else is stationary. Feeling that effort through the back of the upper arm.
Doesn't she make it look easy?
Great job. Slow and controlled. One side might feel stronger than the other. You've heard me say that before if you participate in MS Moves, but it's so true.
Yes, it is. Definitely my right side is stronger than my left.
Those wrist extension exercises, lean forward, stabilize your forearm, bend and extend that wrist. With the weight, palm down, here we go. Whenever we think about bone health, it's also important to think about fall risk reduction. So if you are someone who is at an increased risk for falls because you've had a past history of falls or because of your age, sensory changes, balance changes, please talk with your healthcare provider about these issues.
Yeah, that's important.
Sides. Lean forward, stabilize your forearm, and extend that wrist.
Now this one hasn't been that hard for me to do, but I can see where if I had stiffness at all, this would be a really good exercise to do.
Feel that effort in your forearm. Whew. Gets quite tiring towards these final few repetitions. You're doing a great job.
It does get tiring, especially with the less dominant arm.
Last wrist and forearm exercise. Here we go, palms up, palms down with that weight. Lots of emphasis on this given the challenges that we can have with bone density and bone health in our wrists. Slow and controlled, full range of motion. Tiny muscles fatigue more quickly, so give yourself little breaks if you need it.
And again, this one's pretty easy for me, but it takes away a lot of the stiffness that you might have if you're having trouble moving your wrists. I appreciate how encouraging she is because, you know, exercise is not a fun thing for me. Now, I'm leaving this did you know thing up because I think this is really interesting. Weight-bearing exercises are exercises that work against gravity and have the potential to help you improve your bone health or slow bone loss. These exercises can include lifting weights, walking, or simply standing. So anytime you're fighting gravity, essentially, you're moving your body against gravity, you're actually increasing your bone density. So that's a good thing to know. It doesn't require that you lift heavy weights or do anything too strenuous. I very much appreciate that because I can handle these low impact exercises that Mandy talks about. But I wouldn't really want to do more than that. I don't really think that's something that I'm cut out for. Maybe I could work up to it. And then here's another did you know. You can assess your exertion level by the 2-hour rule. If you haven't returned to your pre-workout baseline energy level within 2 hours, you have done too much. Now I really appreciate her saying that because yeah, you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to end up feeling worse when you're done exercising than you did before you started. But what she's got here is not too long of a time to spend. What she'll do is run us through these same exercises all over again after this 2-minute break is over. And I'm not going to do that obviously here. But I do think that it helps to do it twice because it isn't, like I say, it's not very high impact, and it really does help with feeling more limber and getting that circulation going. Well, there you go. There's a set of exercises that I really do think can be helpful, and it doesn't really matter if you don't like to do exercises on your feet and you don't really like to do aerobic exercises that make you hot, sweaty, and exhausted, because I'm with you on that one. And I have been doing this set of exercises pretty much every day for the last couple of weeks. I do it first thing in the morning so that I have plenty of time to recover, but I don't really even seem to need all that much time to recover. It doesn't do all that much to wipe me out, but it does help me feel a little bit more like my blood is circulating better, and I just feel generally better. So I guess I would highly recommend it. But she has many other different exercises that you can look into, and I will put a link down below so you can check out more of her programs. Well, that's all I have for you today. I'll come back with some more videos about how you can improve your metabolic health, and I won't tell you anything that I don't try myself first, I promise. And in the meantime, take really good care of yourself, and I will see you again in my next video.